Okay. Then next we want to welcome Laurens Gooivaerts to the floor. He's the R&D engineer at Revision Implant, and Revision Implant is very relevant and important work in the developments of neurotechnology for blind people.
Okay, thanks for having me. Normally, my CEO, Frederik Seijsens, would give the talk, but he got struck by Corona, so unfortunately, you have to do it with me tonight. Okay. So as said, we're going to have it about breakthrough neurotechnology for blind people. So at Revision, what do we actually want to solve? Simply put, it's this, a black screen. Because for all of us, at least hope, we can see that this is a black screen on a slide. But for millions of people, this is their reality. It's just a black screen, it's darkness, and that's all there is. That's why we are building a visual prosthesis. So our visual prosthesis consists of two parts. We have the external part, and that's the glasses with the cameras, and then an implantable part that will interface with the brain. So if we have cameras that will transmit the images that we see towards external electronics, that then will talk to the implantable part that's implanted. So let's have a look in what's actually interfacing with the brain. As you can see, these are the electrodes that actually penetrate the brain. They consist of comb-shaped microneedles, and then we also have the electronics, like the stimulator, that will send the data and the waveforms towards the electrodes. So then you may wonder, how does this actually work, this visual prosthesis? What can you see with this? And in theory, the principle is really simple. We just stimulate neurons, and as I said, in theory it's simple, and then we create shapes. So if we would extrapolate this towards combs and thousands of electrodes, we could actually generate a full field of view. So what's our goal? Are we almost there, and what's in reality possible? Nowadays, the current state of the art generates these kind of resolutions, and then you may wonder, is it actually an improvement towards not seeing anything? Because it's not just simply putting something in the brain of a blind people and it works. No, the people that are blind, they actually need to train, and they actually need to learn on how to work with the device. So that's why we're actually targeting way higher resolutions, and not just the resolution that, for example, a student at Old Market on a Thursday evening would have. Just some blurry images. No, we really want to tackle useful vision, like on these pictures where you can actually distinguish persons. So before going into detail, where are we actually situated in the neurotechnology spectrum? And I divided it into three main parts. The conformability, that's what Sebastian Haasler talked about with his biomechanical compatibility. Then you also have the technology paradigm and the application. So based on where you are in this grid, and Revision is actually situated here with flexible implants for medical usage, you have different design requirements and different challenges that you need to face. So in a sense, what I like to think, if you need to develop a neurotechnology solution, is that you need to look at four parts. First, you need to know, for example, what the application is, of course, what's intended use, what's the lifetime of your device, are you going to record, are you going to stimulate? Once you figure that out, you can actually look at the technology paradigm that's more suitable, EEG, ECOG, microneedles. That depends on the degree of invasiveness and so on. So there are a lot of questions you need to ask yourself when you develop a neurotechnology solution. Of course, you also need to look at the environment. How are you going to interface it? Is it going to be with rigid components, with more flexible implants? What's the biostability, the biocompatibility, and so on? And of course, as a designer, in the end, you always have some decisions that you can freely make. But for us, in general, in neurotechnology, most people face the same problems. There are always technology limitations. There's always limited resolution, or almost in most applications. You damage the neural tissue. The neural tissue damages you, your implant. So these technology limitations, they actually make sure that that the neuroscience we have nowadays is not enough to really go to in clinical applications, or it's very hard to go to them. So therefore, it's also really hard, or it's a really pain in the ass to get approval by medical regulations, because if something works, you also need to know why it works, how it works, and if it will always work. And that's why, in my opinion, looking at breakthrough neurotechnology will really solve these issues, because by having better tools, if you develop better tools to extend your neuroscience knowledge, then you also are in a much better position to convince the governing bodies to go to in-clinical trials. And that's why we identified our problems at Revision into 6 key parts. The first parts are really to improve the resolution of the device. The next 2 are really to lower the scar tissue that you have and to improve the interfacing with the tissue. And the last one is really dedicated to our application, that current state-of-the-art devices really are not able to let the user experience a wide field of view, because the neurons that make sure that you can have vision at the peripheral sides of your field of view, they're really hard to access because they're really deep down into the neural tissue. So let's have a closer look on how we actually tackle these issues. So our electrode arrays, they are made out of ultra-thin flexible polymer like polyimide. And as Sebastian has already said, to improve the conformability, this is the way to go. Because if you would have less mismatch with the tissue, you have less scar tissue, you have a better interfacing, and that's in the end what you want. At Revision, we've proven in vitro with some aging tests that our biocompatibility is up to 3 years. So we've tested that up to 3 years we can still read signals out of the electrodes. Then a little bit more into detail for the stimulation that we want to accomplish, we use iridium oxide. Because it has way better recording and stimulation capabilities than just the conventional platinum electrodes. So we've also looked into this, and we've shown that with our iridium oxide electrodes, we really have robust and continuous and high current that we can inject for the stimulations. Then, of course, the insertion technology is also very important when you want to make a neurotechnology solution. For us, we use bioresorbable polymers. So once we put the electrodes into the brain, these polymer will dissolve, such that it will dissolve over days, over weeks, such that in the end you have a nice interface with the neurons. This is also shown on this picture here. And what we can see here is that we have neuronal tissue ingrowth into the insertion site after we've implanted the needles. So this really proves us that insertion works, and also it's really scalable for us in Jaspersberg, because this is where we do the insertion. That is just scalable and really doable for a neurosurgeon. Then, as I said, to improve the stimulation resolution, we also need to have a look at advanced stimulation patterns. So we have ongoing research with the Bonnet Lab at NERV and also the VAB Imaging Core and some other European partners. And what we've done here is we've looked at stimulation algorithms, and we're still looking, of course, into these algorithms. And by just stimulating the right neurons and the right spots in a sequential way, you could actually generate way more complex shapes that is just possible by just singular stimulation. So that will mean by creating these more complex shapes that you can actually artificially boost your resolution more than the number of electrodes that you actually inserted. So the resolution you can attain is way higher than what's physically possible by just your electrodes. Then we also have some ongoing in vivo tests. I'm not going into much detail here, but we have shown that our implants can record signals up to almost 1 year. The measurements are still ongoing. And if you would like to know more about this, I would invite you to our booth so we can go more into detail to this because this is just as a teaser on the slide. Then for the future developments to end here, of course, our solution is not there yet. We're actively searching for it and doing research on multiple domains. The main challenges that are there in neurotechnology in general. So, for example, the long-term stability and biocompatibility needs to be improved, but also general packaging and interconnect problems that we also have that. So that's why we're still looking for the brightest minds in the room to come help us in our journey. So if you feel interested, don't hesitate to come to our booth and to talk to us to see if you would fit in our team. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.